Okay, time for an eviction moratorium update. If you're one of the 92 people that watched my last video on the eviction moratorium, you'll know that I started that video off when I was talking about cue the protests. Well, that is exactly what happened. If you look over here, this is Cancel the Rents. I'm not sure what this organization is. I'm not sure who is funding them. But they, within 24 hours of that moratorium ending, they organized and set up protests in 20 plus cities. I looked at some of the pictures and they were not particularly well attended, but they were still there. And that's exactly what I anticipated happening. And this is far from over. In fact, we have some new data, specifically from Goldman Sachs. They've got a report that just came out talking about what's going to happen over the next 30, 60, 90 days that we're going to cover. If you are new to the channel, my name is Brian. I'm a realtor here in the Boston market. I do cover pretty much all things real estate. I find it very interesting, and I think other folks do as well. So if you do find some value in this video, I just kindly ask that you smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, as well as hit the subscribe button to be notified of future videos. So with that, let's get into it. All right, this is an article from The Hill. This is an article that was syndicated across many media outlets, not just The Hill. Goldman Sachs, 750,000 households face eviction this year. Roughly 750,000 U.S. households face eviction in the months ahead in the wake of a Supreme Court ruling striking down the Biden administration's eviction moratorium. In the report obtained by CNN on Monday, analysts for the company forecasted a, quote, sharp and rapid increase in eviction rates, end quote, in the months ahead unless emergency rental assistance already set aside for states to assist with the current eviction crisis is distributed at a much faster pace or Congress addresses the issue. So I think in July they did $1.7 billion, and that's up like minuscule amounts compared to 1.5 billion, and there's like 45 billion total in this pot. So they haven't even really scratched the surface. Now, part of the reason for that is the way in which it's administered. It requires cooperation. Well, first of all, it's like administered at the state level and then even sometimes at the local level. So there's many different systems. You have to go find out exactly how it's being administered in your specific area. But more importantly, in most of these systems, it requires the cooperation of both the tenant and the landlord. And given the fact that you had the eviction moratorium, the tenants were just like, forget it. Like, I don't care. Like, if I'm not going to pay, I'm not going to pay. And, I can't get kicked to the curb, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to help out the landlord. At least that's what I've seen. Anyways, and the other piece is there are a huge number of people that were not paying their rent, even though they could. So they knew if they applied for the rental assistance, they wouldn't qualify. So why bother applying? It was really just a terrible situation. The way it should have been handled was probably to have the landlord initiate the application process and then leave it up to the tenant to either corroborate, to maybe challenge it, to provide additional documentation if necessary. But ultimately, it should have been up to the landlords because they're the ones that are out all this money. The report estimated that north of 2.5 million households are currently behind on rent, with the tab for outstanding charges for landlords racking up billions. Again, we talked about this in the last video, where it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 to $20 billion. Analysts said in the report that the strength of the housing and rental market suggests landlords will try to evict tenants who are delinquent on rent unless they obtain federal assistance. They also added that evictions in cities hit hardest by the coronavirus pandemic could be particularly pronounced, noting that the rental markets in those regions, CNN noted. So, particularly pronounced, New York, absolutely. Los Angeles, Atlanta, Las Vegas, Miami is another market. And I'm not going to read any more of this article. I think you get the gist here, that there's a lot of things happening because of this eviction moratorium being lifted. But there are two things that I do want to talk about, and that is kind of the unintended consequences of this eviction moratorium. Number one is the rents are soaring. So if you live in a city, I'm in the Boston market again, and the rents are just not through the roof, but they are definitely going up. And the competition for those apartments has also increased fairly dramatically. And number two, if you had a non-paying tenant, if you were a property owner, an income property owner, and or I should say housing provider, if you were a housing provider and you had a tenant that was non-paying, and you surveyed them 3, 4, 5 months ago and you asked them what they were going to do once they were able to evict that tenant, I'd say better than 50% of them would have said, I'm out. I'm done with tenants and toilets. I don't want to deal with this another go round. I'm out. And many of those folks are changing their tune. So part of the reason for that is that rents have gone up so much, right? So if all of a sudden if your prior tenant, you were charging $2,000, now you can get $2,500 for it a month, the math changes, and it really changes your outlook on whether that makes sense for you to continue to own that property or not. Now, for the folks who are being evicted, it is going to be, I don't want to say impossible, but virtually impossible to get a place because the demand for apartments right now is so high. So the eviction moratorium at the end of the day is going to end up hurting the very people that it was intended to help. And that is tragic. Ultimately, the government probably should not have gotten involved. Let the normal cycle happen. I appreciate that again, back in March of 2020, we really didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. But based on everything we know now and the fact that, it's not business as usual by any stretch, but people are out and about. So I don't know where I'm going with this, but I know that the eviction moratorium is going to have a significant impact on real estate. And I don't think that it's going to have we're going to see this huge influx of properties come on the market because people are throwing in the towel for their rental properties. I just don't see it happening, at least not in my market. Maybe it's in some other markets. Actually, I'd love to hear your comments. If you're in a market where this is happening and you've got a bunch of, housing providers that are like, forget this, I'm done with that. Then let me know. It'd be really interesting. And on the flip side of that, I'd love to hear what is happening in terms of evictions, right? So are they happening? Are they not happening? Are there sofas and tables all out on sidewalks? Are people, leaving under the cover of darkness at 2 o'clock in the morning? I'm not up at 2 o'clock in the morning, but maybe some of you are. I have no idea. One of you 92 people must be up at 2 o'clock in the morning. So for that person, please report back. That's all I have today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, again, make sure that you smash that like button and hit the subscribe button to be notified of additional videos. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.